Let us pray. O Lord, we give thanks for the bounty of our province, our land, our resources, and our people. We pledge ourselves to act as good stewards on behalf of all Albertans. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
Thank you. Member for Redwater, Andrew.
Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 40, I'd like to propose a motion for the legislature today, and it's be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Alberta recognize the period of August 1991 to October 1992 as the centennium of the Ukrainian-Canadian pioneer settlement. Further, that it be acknowledged and affirm the contributions made by pioneers and their descendants that have come to this province from the Ukraine, and further that it encourage all Albertans to participate in the many events associated with this important historic event.
Duži dobro.
Introduction of bills.
Honorable the Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill being the Electoral Boundaries Commission Amendment Act 1991. Mr. Speaker, this act is in response to a request by the chairman of the Electoral Boundaries Commission and the membership that the deadline for the interim report be extended in view of the Supreme Court judgment and the pending reference of the Act to our Alberta Court of Appeal, and the request is the extension to December 31st, 1991. Thank you.
The Honorable the Attorney General has moved first reading of Bill 52, Electoral Boundaries Commission Amendment Act 1991. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 52, Electoral Boundaries Commission Amendment Act 1991, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Rostad. It's now read a first time.
Calgary-Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill being the Psychology Professional Amendment Act 1991, Bill 54.
Order, please. Order, please. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Glenmore has moved first reading of Bill 54, Psychology Profession Amendment Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 54, Psychology Profession Amendment Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mrs. Myrosh. It's now read a first time.
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill number 54, Psychology Profession Amendment Act, be placed on the order paper under Government Bills and Orders.
Having heard the motion, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Member for Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 269, the Non-Degradation of Water Quality Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes that any user of water must return that water to the waterway in a pure state without any extra additives which are defined in the bill.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Northwest has moved first reading of Bill 269, Non-Degradation of Water Quality Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 269, Non-Degradation of Water Quality Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Brusaker, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Calgary-Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table the annual report 1990-91 of the Alberta Health and Social Service Disciplines Committee.
Minister of Labour.
A great pleasure, Mr. Speaker, to table with the Assembly the annual report of the Public Service Commissioner for the year ended December 31, 1990. Thank you.
Minister of Health, followed by the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table with the Assembly the annual report of the Alberta Cancer Board for the year ended March 31, 1990. Copies will be given to all members. As well, I am filing the financial statements of the University of Alberta Hospitals for the fiscal year ended March 31, 1991.
Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to file with the Assembly the following documents. A feasibility study of introducing emergency response systems to senior citizens' lodges, the Village of Wildwood, a disincorporation study, 1990, and a third report, the revitalization of downtown Alberta, a self-help action kit.
Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I file with the Assembly the 1991-92 Student Finance Board Scholarship and Awards Guide and the 1991-92 Alberta Transfer Guide, prepared annually by the Alberta Council on Admission and Transfer.
Thank you.
Introduction of special guests.
The Associate Minister of Family and Social Services.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it gives me a great deal of pleasure today to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly 34 members of the W.G. Murdoch School in Crossfield in my constituency. They're accompanied today by their teacher, Mr. Barrett, and parents, Mr. Derry, Mrs. Fox, Mr. Havens, Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Cooper, Mrs. Worthington, Mrs. Schlender, Mrs. Lamoureux, and Mr. Gill. I wonder if they would rise and receive the very warm welcome of this Assembly.
Solicitor General.
Mr. Speaker, it's my privilege to introduce to you and through you to the members of this Assembly 58 students from the Keno Shale Public School in the city of St. Albert, who are concluding their school year by an important visit to this Legislative Assembly today and a tour of the facility here. They are accompanied by Mrs. Brenda Kane, Mr. Dennis Fitzgerald, Mrs. June Schreiber, who are educators in Keno Shale. Mrs. Joan Fowler also accompanies them as a parent, and Mr. Harvey Kennedy. I would ask for the traditional welcome of this assembly of this group, if they would stand, please.
Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure today to have with us 6 students from the Leduc Junior High School. They're accompanied by their teachers, Mrs. Puckinger, Mr. Balkan, and Mrs. Kruger. They're accompanied by them on a tour today, and I met with them earlier. They're in your gallery, in the members' gallery, and I asked them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Additional.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of Labor.
Mr. Speaker, the Royal Canadian Air Force Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps will both celebrate 50th anniversaries this summer. The WDs, as they're known, will mark the occasion on July 2nd, while the Quacks will celebrate their golden anniversary on August 13th. It gives me great pleasure, particularly since I am the daughter of a career serviceman in the Air Force, to rise at this time to acknowledge the important contributions of these women to Canada's military history. The role of women in Canada's military history has been largely overlooked, yet they made significant contributions to Canada's defense during World War II. The women of the Royal Canadian Air Force Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps demonstrated great courage and patriotism, both at home and on the front lines. These women volunteered to go to war when Canada needed every last person's effort to ensure victory and freedom. They faced some unique challenges. About 2 years ago, I hosted a reception for a group of women war veterans who were members of the Canadian Women's Army Corps. One of these women recalled that she quit her job as a maid to sign up and had to wait months to get an Army uniform because the Army tailor had trouble designing a jacket that would fit a woman because of all the bulges. In the early years, women served as cooks, cleaners, typists, accountants, and telephone operators, and like all military personnel, they also took part in parades, marching drills, regular inspections, and other activities. Their pay was less than men's, 90 cents compared to $1.30, and they were not allowed to enter the men's canteens unless they were of higher rank. As the war progressed, women found themselves fulfilling greater responsibilities. Many became part of the ground crew maintaining aircraft and equipment. Many served overseas, and yes, there were some who did not return. Both the RCAF Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps have planned 50th anniversary reunions this summer to renew the camaraderie they shared as young women and to relive memories of the happiness and hardship that they experienced during their tenure in the military. Thanks to their efforts, women entering the military today have an excellent opportunity for personal development and advancement. Canadians and Alberta owe a great deal to the women of the Royal Canadian Air Force Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps. I ask all members of this Assembly to join with me in saluting these women for their commitment to peace, their pioneering spirit, and the pride with which they served their country. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we certainly stand up and agree with the sentiment of the ministerial statement, and also from the official opposition congratulate the Royal Canadian Air Force Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps, as mentioned, celebrating their 50th anniversaries this summer. Mr. Speaker, I think we should also recognize that there are the women that for the first time worked outside their home during the war effort. I think also we should keep in mind the sacrifices that occurred with women in that way also, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Their contribution to society and the workplace, if I may say so, the minister mentions the pay was less than men, 90 cents compared to $1.30, and they were not allowed to enter the men's canteens. Well, Mr. Speaker, some things still haven't changed.
Right.
If I may say so, Mr. Speaker, 50 years later, we know that as the minister correctly pointed out, that their work was undervalued financially. But, Mr. Speaker, I'd point out right here in Alberta, at about 65% of men's earnings, is clear, even at this age, 50 years later, that we need equal pay for work of equal value legislation. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd say to the minister, we agree, but now we can do something about it, and I expect to see pay equity legislation coming in very quickly, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
But I would conclude by saying and agreeing with the minister's statement that Canadians in Alberta owe a great deal to the women of the Royal Canadian Air Force Women's Division and the Canadian Women's Army Corps, and leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral question period.
To the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, every major health advocacy organization in this country is warning about the looming crisis in health care and fearing for the future of our Medicare system. Mr. Speaker, we all know the underlying cause of the crisis, the intensifying abdication of the federal Conservatives in meeting their funding obligations to the provinces. The same Conservatives who I believe that this Minister of Health campaigned for in the last federal election, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, in our province there is another cause for the serious problems in our health care system, the shoddy mismanagement and misplaced priorities of our own government, Mr. Speaker. Let's start with a quick example. Due to inadequate funding by the Conservatives in this province, Alpha House, a substance abuse treatment center, has been forced to close its doors. At the same time, that minister is providing funds to send those needing help to the United States for treatment.
Oh, great.
My question is simply this to the minister. How is it that the Minister of Health can find over $5 million last year to send Albertans out of the province for substance abuse, but can't find money to keep our own substance abuse institutions here? Is that what we call good management, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, here we go again with respect to the issues under the Canada Health Act. First of all, it is one of the requirements of the Canada Health Act that individuals be given the right to choose to go elsewhere and the plan pay for them at the rate that it would pay for it in their province. So if the honourable member is suggesting that we prevent people from accessing programs outside of Alberta, being supplemented in part from Alberta, and the rest they pay on their own, then perhaps he would like to make his own point of view known to the federal government, who in fact is the one that's responsible for the Canada Health Act. But secondly, with respect to the programs that are offered by ADAC and the specific questions that he asked on ADAC, I would refer the leader to, or I would ask the chairman of the ADAC commission to respond.
Supplementary, perhaps, leader.
What we're talking about is the fact that there's money with no controls, we've raised this in the House before, to send people all over for whatever reason, Mr. Speaker, but we're closing down our own institutions. That's shoddy mismanagement, Mr. Speaker. Now, my second question to the minister is another example of mismanagement, conservative styles. Has to do with this government's edifice complex. Throw money into constructing new buildings, but don't staff them, Mr. Speaker. Right now, as we speak, the brain injury unit at Ponoka has 16 transitional units sitting absolutely empty, even though it's been open less than a year, because the government refuses to provide funds to staff them, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, no.
My question to the minister is simply this. Will the minister explain how spending money on shiny and expensive new buildings that have to remain inoperational for lack of staffing funds is an efficient use of our tax dollars in health care?
Mr. Speaker, I know that the solution that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has for every issue that comes along in health is to put more money into it. The budget for the Alberta Hospital Ponoka is one that I think we can all be proud of in terms of being part of a continuum of health services for mental health in this province. The need to get qualified people to work in that facility has been a need that this government has helped that facility with for some time, particularly with the need for people with special psychiatric training. But however, to simply say that the only answer is to react by giving more money to an institution as opposed to saying let's look at the needs, let's ensure that we're supplying in terms of our educational institutions the needs of the people that are going to be needed in our health institutions, I think in fact we're doing a far more comprehensive review of that, and I am not supportive of his view that all we do is throw the system into debt, because ultimately debt is what will kill our health care plan as well as our vital social infrastructure in Canada, and it's not the way this government or this minister intends to proceed.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, this is unbelievable. This government goes around, spend, put plaques in buildings all over the province, Mr. Speaker. Then they can't staff them, and somehow they're blaming us for this, Mr. Speaker.
I'd like to hear that.
That's a real good one.
Now, Mr. Speaker, my question is to the minister again. How does it make economic sense and financial good management to build buildings and then have them sit there, Mr. Speaker, as happening with the brain injury unit in Ponoka? Would you answer that?
Mr. Speaker, I mean, the NDP caucus can laugh if they like about building a brain injury unit at the Alberta Hospital Ponoka if they wish. I don't happen to think it's a laughable matter. The issue of brain injury and making sure that we have a capacity in our health system to deal with brain injury, which frankly is becoming a bigger part of the health profile and the health needs profile, is one that we have recognized as the government. We do need infrastructure, and we do need people to work in that unit, and when it's fully operational, which is what we are in the process of doing, it will be able to serve the needs of Albertans, not just in central Alberta, but right across this province. And I think we can be proud of the kinds of facilities we have, not just in central Alberta, but right across this province, and ensure that they are ready to meet the needs and the health needs of the 90s and into the 21st century.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When you build buildings, you need staff and patience, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
But, my second question I'd like to designate to Edmonton Jasper Place.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, having read the latest draft of the Environmental Protection Enhancement Act, I now understand why the Minister of the Environment rudely walked out on question period yesterday.
Yeah.
If I was stuck with this...
Order, please. We went through this enough in the last couple of days. Just ask the question, please. I'm sure you've got a very important question.
Like you? Secret fund?
Where would he get it from?
Yeah, Rick Orman should talk about class.
Yeah, right.
The campaign fund, Ray.
It's clear why the minister would ask for delay and refuse to answer questions. The legislation is flawed because it almost completely ignores the public input at public hearings that were held throughout the province. The worst aspect of this legislation has been and remains sweeping discretionary powers granted to the minister and the cabinet. These were described at the public hearings, and I quote, as the most disturbing aspect of the proposed legislation. And I would like the minister to state to this assembly why the legislation proposes almost nothing in the way of substantive duty and obligation of the minister, while granting the power to waive environmental impact assessments and even the power of the minister to overturn appeal board hearings.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm astounded that the honourable member has taken this bill well over 100 pages in fine print and has been able to read this overnight and actually understand it. Notwithstanding the fact, Mr. Speaker, that this bill in draft form has been out there for 2 years, as well as the recommendations on the task force of the review committee have been out there 2 years, and all of a sudden it comes to light that, my gosh, this honourable member has had the ability, has recognized the ability to read something overnight and put it all together and come up with those profound questions. Mr. Speaker, basically this bill will sit and take its time and have give opposition members ample time for debate and opportunity to provide their input, and I look forward to that debate, Mr. Speaker.
The point is that Albertans came out in droves and demanded an end to these loopholes in this discretion, and he's ignoring their desire for tough new environmental laws. The minister has just said that this latest draft is going to be held over once again for more public input. This is the black hole approach, where input goes in, is never seen or heard from again. And given that the minister did not listen to the public input over the last year, hearing only the backroom lobbyists, why should we believe that he's going to listen over the next year while it sits again?
Well, Mr. Speaker, when you talk about backroom lobbyists, I can think of no better example of backroom lobbying than the socialist NDPs over there who sneak into constituencies and ill-advise the people in those constituencies how they can discredit the government, how they can play the games. A good example was the LPAC decision just the other day. The LPAC decision just the other day, where the NDP, the former policy advisor of the NDP, Randy Lawrence, part of this organization, advised the people there to take the province to court on this particular issue. Not only did they lose in court, but they were assessed the highest possible costs that the court could award. Mr. Speaker, that is a good example of socialist NDP backroom politics. And I say that the only thing...
Thank you. Thank you, honourable member. Thank you. Order, please. Order. I know some of us were here till after 1 o'clock this morning, so let's just cool it a little bit. Final supplementary, Edmonton Jasper, please.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I ask about legislation, and he talks about court cases and things that happen in the night. I just wonder if he would address another key recommendation coming from the Evans report, which is a reflection of the real input of the real people out there. A key recommendation was the concept of whistleblowers protection.
There you go.
And typically the louder voices in the Tory caucus, in the cabinet, they ran roughshod over the concern of the public, of those who report pollution violations and poaching offences are at the mercy of the perpetrators. How can this government spend tax dollars advertising in public for people to come forward and report these offences, when it leaves them without a fair and reasonable measure of protection under legislation.
Well, this is another perfect example of socialist paranoia, Mr. Speaker, and I think the honourable member's paranoia has executed a coup d'etat on his brain. Really, Mr. Speaker, whistleblower legislation is a matter of policy as it affects all departments of government, not just environment. If there's going to be a fundamental policy relative to whistleblowers legislation, then it should be a policy of government. It should be a policy of this province. And you've got to be very, very careful. You've got to be very, very careful, because if you hearken back to the philosophies of, say, Mao Zedong and the philosophies of communist China many years ago, that was exactly the kind of thing that the socialists wanted to enshrine into policy, was to tell on people and get paid to do it. I have more faith in Albertans, Mr. Speaker. I have more faith in Albertans. Albertans will tell the government and tell the proper authorities what they think when something is being done wrong. The fundamental principle here is, Mr. Speaker, is that the basic policies and the very fundamental policies of strengthened environmental legislation have been retained in this Act. A legislated environmental impact assessment process, polluter pay policy, increased enforcement.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That's a good lead into the further study of the bill. Edmonton Glengarry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My first question is to the Deputy Premier. Mr. Speaker, environmental protection has not been a high priority for the Getty government. In fact, we need only look at ALPAC to see how abysmal environmental protection and the handling of that issue went. We now see major weaknesses in the government's new environmental protection legislation. And we can even read that legislation overnight, Mr. Minister. I don't think it's too hard to comprehend or to digest. Mr. Deputy Premier, there is no commitment from the Getty government to initiate, to put into effect this new legislation. It is possible that this new legislation may take a year or even longer to be put into effect to get to it. Mr. Speaker, regulations aren't included as part of the package, and in environmental protection that's critical. And finally, it neglects a number of key recommendations that were made by the Evans Review Panel, which were good recommendations. My first question to the Deputy Premier is this: will the Deputy Premier agree that environmental protection is a high priority in Alberta, and agree to calling this session back in the autumn to deal with this very important legislation?
The matter of a fall sitting of the legislature, of course, is open for discussion and will be considered. The minister has made it clear that the legislation which was introduced yesterday, and which, by the way, regulations are never in the legislation. You know, that's a very puzzling remark by the leader of the Liberal Party, to say that regulations should be part of legislation. Perhaps he doesn't understand the situation, but in any event, it is the intention of the government to bring forward the draft regulations for consideration by the public as part of the review process. And in any event, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And we will do this legislation well, and it will be the best environmental protection legislation that Albertans are hoping for. And it will be the best in Canada.
Mr. Speaker, it's time to stop the nonsense of keeping MLAs on a thread, wondering whether there will be a session or not be a session. Let's deal with some of the priorities that affect Albertans, and this is a high priority. Why don't you commit yourself to protecting the environment and say, this is important, we're going to deal with it, we're going to show you the regulations, and we know that they don't form part of the actual legislation, but let's see that the government isn't waffling and weaseling out in the protection of Albertans and the environment. Let's see that.
Well, since it wasn't addressed to a particular minister, I think I would like to answer that, Mr. Speaker. You know, you talk about irresponsibility. Yesterday, as I was leaving to attend a meeting with the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs in Nisku to clean up a garbage mess and have discussion with some 13 mayors and reeds to clean up a garbage mess that was left by the Liberal frontbenchers right there. There they are, Decor, Hughes, and Wickman. And because the Liberals delayed question period by more than 45 minutes, I had to leave, Mr. Speaker, and you know, if that's all I have to do to get rid of 2 Liberal members, maybe I should leave 4 times today. You know, it might... But, Mr. Speaker, this bill is probably well, yeah, it is the best in the world. Finally, the NDP has admitted something. It is.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Stop while you're ahead. Final.
Mr. Speaker, the minister acts like a mouse, squeaks like a mouse, and is a mouse.
Is a mouse. Right, hold it. Honourable member. Order, please. Take your place. It's the honoured tradition of Parliament to refer to members as honourable members, and other kinds of comments are really not in order. Perhaps later be good enough just to realize again where he is.
Last question is to the Honourable Mousy Minister.
Order, please, honourable member. Order. Red Deer North.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Deputy Premier.
Please, honourable member, you do not have a last question. Take your place. Take your place, honourable member. Take your place, honourable member. Honourable Mr. Decor, you are named to the House. Order, please, honourable member. Please take... Honourable member. Just a moment, honourable member. Before the member leaves the House, you will not be recognized to the House for either question period or any other operation of the House until you make due apology. Please exit. Order, please. Red Deer North.
Mitchell. Thanks, Mr. Speaker. To the Deputy Premier, one thing that was abundantly made clear to the Alberta Constitution Task Force in its recent hearings is that Albertans do not want any province having special status. We've just seen in a recent release coming from the federal Baudouin-Edwards Committee, the committee looking at the amending process, a proposal which would grant a veto to Ontario and Quebec and relegate other provinces to second-class status. This is repugnant in the extreme to Albertans who presented to the task force and to Albertans in general. I'd like to ask the Deputy Premier, I know it's a fact that the provincial Conservative Party has divorced itself from the federal party, but is that keeping the Deputy Premier from conveying the concern of Albertans to Mr. Edwards in particular, who was in the media again this morning, saying that this would be a good thing for Albertans? Is he being limited in conveying this?
Mr. Speaker, the answer is no. In short, and I am very, as I indicated yesterday, very offended to think that any member of Parliament from Alberta would support a proposal of this kind, which would relegate Alberta to second-class, if not third-class status. I don't know who the honourable member of Parliament has been talking to in Alberta, but certainly it has been made abundantly clear to us and to all members of the Select Special Committee that special status for Quebec and Ontario or any other province is unacceptable. Just for example, Mr. Speaker, in the survey I conducted with my constituents, over 700 households, and that would account for at least 1,500 to 2,000 people, responded to this question. All provinces should have identical constitutional status. Strongly agree, 67%. Agree, 23%. That comes to 90% agreeing that no province should have any special status. And that is the view of the government as I expressed yesterday in my ministerial statement, and I was pleased with the support that I received for the statement from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate the outcome of that questionnaire in one part of the province, I'm wondering if the Deputy Premier can advise, even though the Constitution Task Force has not come up with a report and can't until the hearings are done, is it within the mandate, his mandate as chairman, to at least take some of the interim feelings of this issue and convey those also to Mr. Edwards and to that committee?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've already done so in my ministerial statement yesterday, and I repeat it again, that Alberta and this government and this legislature has made it clear that they will not accept a proposal which would place Alberta into a second-class status. In fact, when one looks more carefully at the proposal laid before the people of Canada yesterday, it would in fact relegate Alberta to a third-class status behind British Columbia. Because British Columbia would only have to get the consent of either Saskatchewan or Manitoba, whereas Alberta would have to get the approval or the support of British Columbia or the two other provinces. So in fact, what the Edwards-Beaudoin Committee is proposing is offensive, even more offensive, by relegating Alberta to third-class provincial status. And that, Mr. Speaker, is totally unacceptable to the government of the province of Alberta, and I hope to all members of this Assembly.
Edmonton Millwoods.
Mr. Speaker, my questions today are to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety, and as Occupational Health and Safety Week comes to a close, we realize the tragic state of affairs in Alberta when it comes to health and safety in the workplace. Workers have suffered lead poisoning, PCB contamination, and now we have reports that meat plant workers have tested positive for tuberculosis following exposure to disease L. So I'd like to ask the Minister, what measures will he be taking to protect Alberta workers from biological hazards, and especially those that have resulted from this government's misguided policy on game ranching?
Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Honourable Minister, I'd be very happy to take that question under notice.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question then perhaps to the Minister of Agriculture, who at least has the decency to show up in question period. Given the documented...
Order, please. Honourable members. Honourable members. Honourable members. Proper way for the Minister of the Environment to have replied was yes. As acting Minister, I take the question as notice, doesn't have to say in the absence of. But again, Edmonton Millwoods, we've been through this more than enough. If it occurs once more, you won't be recognized.
To the Minister of Agriculture then, given the documented threats to public health and especially to the health of workers involved, will the Minister give a commitment today not to proceed with proclamation of his bill on game ranching and agree to hold open public hearings on this issue?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delays, Mr. Speaker. 1 year after the Danzig review of forest management policy in Alberta, the Minister of Forest, Lands and Wildlife has released a review of the review in which he, one, states that he will develop an Alberta forestry conservation strategy, 2, that he will provide meaningful opportunities for public input, and 3, that he will develop a natural resources policy framework. My question is to the Minister of Forest, Lands and Wildlife. How can this minister argue that his review of the Danzig Review, specifying as it does platitudes about what he will or may do in the future, is anything more than a cynical attempt to delay the development of a proper and responsible forest conservation strategy for this province?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark never ceases to amaze me. And the response to the report was tabled yesterday. It was the Danzig report took some 15 months to be prepared by the expert panel. There's some 133 recommendations. They've been responded to in detail in the report. And then rather than grandstanding for some political gain of some sort that he might see in some distorted way, you should look at the report and you'll see that the framework that's established within the document to respond to the expert panel is clear, concise, offers a very meaningful opportunity for public input, discussion, review through the process to establish an overall conservation strategy that covers a wide spectrum of Alberta public lands and public issues.
Mr. Speaker, the government's excuse for the delay in developing its forest conservation strategy is that they are going to seek public input and public discussion. Laudable goals, Mr. Speaker, but my question is, what has this minister been doing for the past year when he could easily have structured public hearings, solicited public input, and driven this forest conservation strategy to an urgently needed early conclusion?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I tell by the tone of his voice that he hasn't read the total document, doesn't understand what it's all about. It's a very comprehensive review by the expert panel of forestry in this province and public lands issues. The framework that will be established throughout the process that will lead to a number of strategies in forest conservation as well as fisheries and others will give the opportunity for Albertans to develop a policy framework that will stand us in good stead through this century and into the next one. Mr. Speaker, it's a very comprehensive review. I think it's one that's been responded to in a very meaningful way, and he should look at it positively. He's got an opportunity even himself for some input if he were to spend a little time and fully understand the forest conservation strategy and what's needed for this province.
Highland. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister of Environment. Mr. Speaker, the Little Bow Reservoir project requires water diversion from the Highwood River. However, the river may not be able to support these withdrawals during the short flush period in low-flow years. Mr. Speaker, there's a clear need for upstream storage, whether on-stream or off-stream, to collect the flush for later release to meet the demands of the irrigation, livestock, and domestic uses. And most importantly, to permit enough water to be kept in the Highwood River to keep it a healthy and viable river. My question is, what provisions for upstream storage is the minister prepared to support?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as part of the ongoing process to address this very critical issue whereby we need to satisfy the inflow requirements of the Highwood River, and at the same time satisfy the traditional needs of the irrigating farmers on the Little Bow, which is supplemented through a diversion on the Highwood River. We've tried to come to grips with the situation of how we not deplete and degrade the Highwood and at the same time maintain those irrigating levels on the Little Bow. We're looking at a number of alternatives, and one of the alternatives is to maybe expand the reservoir on Squaw Coulee, so if the water recedes or becomes in jeopardy on the Highwood River, then we can draw from the Squaw Coulee reservoir or perhaps some other reservoirs. We have committed to doing a feasibility study on the Squaw Coulee reservoir, and we will consider other off-stream storage opportunities upstream on the Highwood River.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question is again to the Minister of Environment. Given that the minister has indicated that he's prepared to consider upstream storage, whether offstream or onstream, is the minister prepared to tie the need for upstream storage in the Highwood River to final approval of the Little Bow Reservoir project?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this has been a matter of tremendous controversy in the both the Highwood area and the Little Bow area. And basically we have said that we want a full-blown environmental impact assessment on the project, and we will submit all the recommendations to the Natural Resources Conservation Board for a proper adjudication.
Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Recreation and Parks. The CRC, that is the Community Recreation Culture Grants Program, is due to conclude in March 31, 93. Now, I realize this is some time away, Mr. Speaker. However, these grants are crucial to both the municipalities and the community groups for which they service. In addition, I think these grants do demonstrate the benefit of cooperation between the province, the municipalities, and the groups that the money is provided for. My question then to the Minister is this: when can the municipalities and the community groups anticipate an announcement from the Minister as to when there will be a new program will be announced, in order that lead time is given to these groups so they can plan for their delivery of their services in 1993?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is a good question because we recognize the job that the CRC grants have done in this province. They've delivered some $240 million out to the municipalities and volunteer organizations across this province. When we go back to the early 70s, there has been a commitment by this government to build approximately $1 billion in recreational facilities and other used facilities in our communities. And we do recognize that the maintenance of these and the support of the volunteer organizations that use them is very, very important. I will indicate to the Assembly that we will be reviewing the community recreation and cultural grants. I will be working with the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism, and also linking up with the minister responsible for the Community Facility Enhancement Program to look at how we may go into the future in support of our volunteer organizations and municipalities and this infrastructure.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister is that the Parks and Recreation Cultural Advisory Boards prioritize the distribution of the CRC program as they are viewed as being fair and equitable. To the Minister, will any future program retain the advisory board structure to ensure that this representative body is responsible for the distribution of these funds?
We will certainly be reviewing it, as I said, and I recognize just exactly what you say, that these advisory boards have done an excellent job, and I will also indicate that if we cannot find any other structure that facilitates the review of these such grants any better, then yes, the advisory committees will be used to the fullest.
Edmonton Center.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that the Minister of Health is back from her meeting with other provincial health ministers with at least a reported and renewed commitment to Medicare and the principles of the Canada Health Act, she must surely have discussed with her colleagues how it is that government needs to work much more closely with doctors to both control costs as well as to improve equity, efficiency, and quality of care for patients. And no doubt she heard, Mr. Speaker, how the recent financial agreement between the Ontario government and the Ontario Medical Association was so successful because of the fact that the government there agreed to recognize the Ontario Medical Association as the sole bargaining agent to which all doctors pay mandatory dues, with binding arbitration as their negotiating mechanism. When will this minister and this government similarly commit itself to enable the Alberta Medical Association to be the sole bargaining agent for all doctors in the province as per the RAND formula, and get on with providers for improving quality of medical care for all Albertans in the province?
Mr. Speaker, the negotiations with our physicians will begin late summer, early fall. because as the honourable member may be aware, we have a 3-year agreement with our physicians here in Alberta, which will come to an end at the end of March 1992. However those negotiations are going to proceed and what items may be on the agenda, I think would be very improper to discuss in this House, except to say that it truly is a negotiation, and I'm sure and I'm hopeful that we can reach a appropriate solution for all involved, and most importantly, to provide the access to services which we, of course, are want to do, not only under the Canada Health Act, but beyond.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very disappointed by that answer. I'm not talking at all about the contents of the negotiations as they need to go on before the end of March. I'm talking about the processes by which those negotiations are come to the table. And the minister knows that not only is the contract need to be renegotiated, but the Alberta Medical Association itself has asked for, the significant majority of its members have asked for the RAND formula with binding arbitration as the mechanism to go to the table. So I'd like to ask the minister, is she going to continue the sort of right-wing Reform Party agenda of undermining the rights of working people and undermining universal social programs, or is she going to begin to act on principles of true collective bargaining and work with all doctors and other health providers, their unions and associations, to ensure fairness and quality in our healthcare system?
Well, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the member for Edmonton the Centre, I am not going to be part of the negotiations here on the floor of this Assembly. It would be highly improper. And it may well be that that will be an end result of those negotiations. But there are some other things that I think are important parts of that discussion too, and I'm not prepared to give the two sides and beyond with respect to arriving at an agreement, except to commit to this House and to the public of this province and the physicians of this province that we will work together to find a suitable agreement in order that all parties, including the public of Alberta, are well served by our medical profession.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, examples that prove we're experiencing a steady erosion in health services come into our offices in frightening volumes. The most tragic stories we hear are those affecting families of children who are waiting for heart surgery. These families can't understand how their young and very fragile children must go through life-threatening delays for surgery in a province that has always boasted of compassion. They've been put on hold, Mr. Speaker, waiting for recommendations from a task force. My questions are to the Minister of Health. It's my understanding that the Minister's Advisory Committee on Pediatric Cardiology will be making their recommendations today. Will the Minister make this report public immediately, along with her action plans for more beds, a step-down unit, and relief for Calgary?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is correct that there is a meeting today of the pediatric group on, or rather the cardiovascular task force. And with respect to the issue of pediatric cardiology, we are looking obviously at what that task force will recommend to us with respect to ensuring that we continue to manage well the waiting list for not only pediatric but for adult cardiac surgery as well. I am not prepared to commit at this point that I would make an advisory report public to me, except to say that I certainly will await the recommendations of that full task force, because they are looking at ensuring that we get the best value for the resources that we dedicate to cardiac surgery in this province, and I support them in that meeting and ensuring that is the goal.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. The waiting lists, however, grow, and children get sicker. Mr. Speaker, will the minister at least ensure that Calgary Children's Hospital gets the needed angioscope machine, since it's been sitting in a packing case at the Lougheed Hospital for the last 2 years? Let's at least make use of the equipment we have to ease this situation.
Mr. Speaker, a couple of points with respect particularly to the issue of child cardiac surgery. Some surgeries are inappropriately performed on children before a certain age. So while they may appear on the waiting list, they are not good patients for that surgery until an appropriate age. So that is part of a waiting list, but I don't think it's one that could be equated to the adult waiting list. Secondly, the honourable member is correct in the information that an angioscope machine was purchased originally for the Peter Lougheed Hospital in Calgary, and when the review of programs went through, it was decided that it shouldn't be used and that another surgery program hopefully would not have to be set up in Calgary, but rather we could concentrate the resources on the University of Alberta surgery program. That doesn't mean that there isn't cardio work being done on a program basis in Calgary, but just not the surgery component. However, the machine itself does not create a surgery program. And making the best use of that machine, including the option of selling it, if that's the best option, is part of what the task force will be recommending to me, and I await their recommendations.
Pam Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 1989, the City of Calgary applied to annex some 100 square miles of area around the city. And included in that annexation application was about 9 square miles in an area west of the city in Banff Cochrane constituency known as the Springbank area. The city's annexation application, insofar as that area was concerned, was denied. However, that did not end the issue, Mr. Speaker. There is, in fact, increasing polarization in that area between people who wish to become part of the City of Calgary and those who wish to remain in the municipal district of Bighorn. The Minister of Municipal Affairs has met with the City of Calgary, the Municipal District of Bighorn, and local residents in an effort to try to bring these people together. And in fact, there is work being done now on a joint general municipal plan.
Remember, it was 38 seconds.
To continue, Mr. Speaker, I'm just trying to lay the groundwork here. There is work being done on a joint general municipal plan. However, and as a part of that, I should mention as well, there's a Citizens Advisory Committee. However, the citizens in the area are concerned about the speed in which this process is taking place. My question to the Minister of Municipal Affairs is, what is he doing to facilitate the organization that would bring together the city, the municipal district, and the residents to reach a decision on this important planning matter?
Mr. Speaker, welcome the question from the honourable member. As of this week, we've been able to agree on a set of terms of reference to be used for a joint general municipal plan study in that respective area and to look at the various needs and decisions that need to be made to satisfy those citizens. At the present time, along with those terms of reference will be the involvement of an advisory committee that involves citizens of the area of Springbank, along with representatives of the City of Calgary, and as well representatives from the municipal district of Rockyview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to hear of that progress. My supplemental question to the Minister is, can the Minister identify a time frame wherein he may expect a report back on this plan for the Springbank area?
Mr. Speaker, in the terms of reference that have been established, there are 4 stages to the study that will go on. The first stage is a collection of all of the information, all of the background data, and some very in-depth surveys of attitudes in terms of the residents in the Springbank area. That information will be presented this fall, somewhere in the time period between September and December, for the local residents' examination. Following that, into the year 1992, we will go into stages 2, 3, and 4, and I would think towards the end of 1992 we will have a recommendation that's well-founded and well massaged through the public process that will involve the citizens of that area. I want to say that that has been one of the very strong recommendations with regards to this matter from the local MLA, and we have tried to accede to that direction.
Might we revert to the introduction of special guests? Agreed. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. In this order, Redwater Andrews, Stony Plain, Lesser Slave Lake, Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure for me today to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly a group of 12 bright, energetic students from the Wassetna School, which is in the heart of the Redwater Andrew constituency, and I'm sure they're enjoying their morning here and probably will enjoy the afternoon. And they're accompanied by teachers Mr. Patno and Mrs. Doshchunik, and parent Mrs. Stashnik, and they're seated in the members' gallery, and I ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Stony Plain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to introduce a group of students from Gramenia School in the Stony Plain constituency who are accompanied by teachers Mrs. Rhonda Cummings, Mrs. Gwen Pittman, and parents Mrs. Judy Zender, Mrs. Swanston, Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Horlick, Mrs. Lapointe, Mrs. Pooley, and Mrs. Hunter. They're here to visit the Ledge Assembly and watch us in action, and I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the members.
Lesser Slave Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great privilege for me today to introduce to you and all members of the Assembly 21 students from Kinuso School in Kinuso, Alberta, approximately 3 hours drive away from here. They've been touring Edmonton for the last 3 days. They've gone to West Edmonton Mall to get some action. They've come to the legislature where real action is. And they're accompanied by their teacher, Ms. Laurie Shelp, parents, Mrs. Annette LaValle, Mrs. Rose Hunt, Mrs. Karen Abel, and Mr. Rob Brown. I would ask that they all rise and receive the warm welcome of the legislature.
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, the Honorable Ken Kowalski, Minister of Public Works, Supply and Service, and member for Barrhead, I take pleasure in introducing to you and through you to the Assembly 21 students from Rich Valley Elementary School in the Barrhead constituency. They're accompanied today by their teacher, Mrs. Hard, parents, Mrs. Judy Ho, Ms. Laverne DeHeck, and Mr. Harvey Ho. They're seated in both the members and public gallery. I'd ask that they stand and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
Lesser Slave Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rare that I get to introduce two groups at once. Not at once, I mean twice in one day. It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you and members of the Assembly 6 esteemed people from various parts of the world visiting our legislature today. I'm sure they've found that the actors in this legislature are very extremely interesting, especially those that are most dramatic than some of them. These people come from England and New Zealand and have the same parliamentary system as we do. I'd ask that they rise as I call out their name. Marcella Kinsey, Kathleen Devine, Marcelona McNally, Bernadette Wright, all these people are from England, and Jackie Boyle from New Zealand, and a good friend, Phil Boyle, who is an ex-co-worker of mine. I'd ask that the Assembly give them a very warm welcome.
Are there additional? I have a mysterious note here about some other groups to be introduced, but no signature. Okay. Thank you. We have points of order arising in question period. The first was Edmonton White Mud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I cite, Mr. Speaker, Beauchesne 168-1, and I also cite standing orders of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta 11-1. And I want to, Mr. Speaker, key in on 2 particular aspects that are covered in those 2 sections. The one dealing with impartiality, and the other dealing with the question of the Speaker participating in the debate of the Assembly. Now, when I first address impartiality, when we look at Beauchesne 168-1, impartiality is referred to on a number of occasions. Confidence in the impartiality of the Speaker is an indispensable condition to ensure the impartiality of the Speaker, general recognition of the Speaker's impartiality. In other words, Beauchesne recognizes the essentialness of impartiality. And Mr. Speaker, I've tended to kind of sit back here and watch proceedings in this term a good period of time, but I got to refer to what happened this morning to the member of Edmonton Glengarry. It's not that many days ago, and I'm talking here impartiality, it's not that many days ago when I watched the Premier of this province get up and refer on 2 occasions to the member from Edmonton-Glengarry as being Slippery Larry. Now you stop and think, Slippery Larry, what does that imply? On the other hand, we have the member from Edmonton-Glengarry referring to the Minister of Environment as Mousy Ralph. Now, what does that imply? What would possess either one to make that type of reference? Possibly the Premier of the province believes the member is Slippery, and possibly this member believes the Minister of the Environment is Mousy. Possibly one or both of them are trying to make political points. Who knows? Who can second guess? Nevertheless, the difference between the two. In the one case, the Premier, when he made reference to Slippery Larry, he was not reprimanded. He was not asked to cut his response short. He was not named, nothing. On the other hand, when the member from Edmonton-Glengarry, he did not withdraw. He refused to withdraw. However, when the member from Edmonton-Glengarry makes reference to Mousy Ralph, which to me is no big deal, Mousy Ralph is simply an adjective that describes a person's behavior. Same as Slippery may to some.
Thank you, honourable member. Let's not complicate things any further. Previous member was called to order for that. Along the lines of referring to all honourable members. At the moment, you're challenging a decision of the chair. Now, if you'd like to deal with your remarks in a much more tempered manner, that would be fine. And then let's hear what you have to say with respect to your point of order, which is purported to be one.
Mr. Speaker, it becomes extremely important to demonstrate impartiality. I'll go to a second instance that occurred as recently. The member from Edmonton Meadowlark has a preamble by somebody's count of 39 seconds. On the other hand, I watched the member from wherever, Banff Cochrane, this morning. It must have been 60, 70 seconds. Clearly a difference. Clearly, again, a question of what impartiality is being offered there. When two members are treated differently, without question, that is not demonstrating impartiality. I go to my second point, Mr. Speaker, which both points hinge on that key question, I believe, of fairness, where the Speaker is not to take part in any debate before the Assembly. There's 2 ways of participating in debate, in my opinion. One would be to actively participate, to actively make argument on a position for or against. The other is a little more subtle, and that's as to how that debate is being directed. And if it's being directed in such a manner that it favors one particular side over the other, that then to me is a psychological participation in that particular debate. And I submit to you, Mr. Speaker, that you have clearly demonstrated, or the chair has clearly demonstrated, a lack of impartiality in this House on a number of occasions, but I'm referring specifically to this morning and a question of a form of debate in this House, which in my opinion is not fair, and I would ask that you not only rule in my favor, but you reverse your earlier decision to name the member from Edmonton-Glengarry.
Red Deer North. Quickly on the point of order, Mr. Speaker. First on the issue of the 2 incidents that happened between the leaders. The member, I don't know where he was when the incident happened with the Premier. The Speaker very clearly brought that to the Premier's attention. When the Speaker stood up and addressed it, the Premier immediately sat down. What has happened today and yesterday was the 2 members continued to stand, shriek, pound their feet, jump around like little gophers on a griddle. They did not sit down when they were addressed and told to by the chair on a number of occasions. A very clear difference in terms of how they handle themselves. On impartiality, this day, as I was bringing out an issue that I felt was very important to Albertans, the Speaker in his wisdom deemed I had gone too long. I didn't like the fact that you were cutting me short, but I accepted that as a ruling from the chair. Let's dispense with these petty little arguments and get on with the business of the House. Look at the record. You'll see that the opposition members clearly have a clear abundance of questions, far more than we ever get here. The preambles are longer. Let's disperse with this petty stuff and get on with the business of the House.
Okay, thank you. This is not a point of order. It is a thinly veiled attack upon the chair. It's contempt of the House, in actual fact. First, honorable member, as has been pointed out on the occasion when the Premier made some comment about the member for Edmonton Glengarry, the chair did intervene, the Premier did sit down, and the Premier did retract. Another occasion with respect to the use of a word slippery occurred when the Speaker was not in the chair, and at that time, when it was brought to the attention of the House, a letter was sent by the Deputy Speaker apologizing to the member for Edmonton Glengarry for not having dealt with that matter in the House at that particular time when the incident occurred. I know the letter was sent and the letter was received by the member for Edmonton Glengarry. Therefore, there's no need for that matter to be raised in the House. Now, the other problem that occurred today, which has happened on a number of occasions with the member for Edmonton Glengarry, the attempt to intimidate the chair and the House by not taking his place when the Speaker rises, and by constantly shouting at the chair when the Speaker has risen. That has happened on a number of occasions, and that is the reason for the member being named today. It is also doubly reprehensible that it is the leader of a political party in this House that carries on in such manner, because those who are leader of the parties or carry responsible roles have the additional responsibility of knowing full well what the operation of Parliament is and adhering to the proprieties of the House. That has been violated on a number of occasions. Again, it was brought to the attention of the House yesterday in the unfortunate situation whereby it occurred with other members of the same caucus, with one other member of the same caucus. That was the reason for the naming yesterday. That was the reason for the naming today. And because we've had this incident, the unfortunate incident of 3 members from the same caucus having to go for a walk within 2 days, far be it from the chair to speculate what other motives might be involved, that it then is just making the issue that much more significant, and therefore the punishment today was brought down, and it's very clear to this House. The member for Edmonton Glengarry is in contempt of the House. The member will apologize to the House before being recognized in any proceeding of this House. Order? No, he cannot. Order? The Premier did not. It was the Deputy Speaker. There will be no more interruptions, or you will take a walk for the second day in a row. Because there's some defect with somebody's hearing and their inability to read, the chair will again read to the House. Erskine May, page 397. Roll your eyes to the ceiling if you wish, honorable member. But if your caucus will not listen, so be it. It's not the fault of the chair then when the necessary actions have to take place. Page 397 of Erskine May. Whenever the Speaker rises to intervene in a debate, he should be heard in silence, and any member who is speaking or offering to speak should immediately sit down. Members should not leave their seats while the Speaker is addressing the House. Members who do not maintain silence or who attempt to address the Speaker are called to order by the majority of the House with loud cries of order and chair. A member who persists in standing after the Speaker has risen and refuses to resume his seat when directed by the chair to do so may be either directed to withdraw from the House for the remainder of the sitting or named for disregarding the authority of the chair. Close of quote. The member for Edmonton-Whitemud also raised complaints with respect to the timing of questions. The chair indeed does time the questions and the answers. They're here. We can go through every one of the files for all of this session. And when you do the averaging out, you will see that in actual fact, perhaps you have not been done a disservice. The final thing that the chair is really quite taken aback to have the comments made that the chair is supposed to be absolutely, totally, not only quiet, but brain dead. That now the chair is being castigated, if you will, for how dare I even get myself to be involved in debates in a quiet, psychological manner. Please, honorable member, the chair is doing its job. There's no point of order. Order, please. There's no need for any further discussion. Edmonton Meadow. Order, please, honourable member. If this is... Thank you, honourable member. It appears to be part of your game. Now you will be quiet. Edmonton Meadowlark on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order under 409 subsection 2 and 410 subsection 8, which refer to the nature of preambles to questions. In my question yesterday, the speaker, you sir, cut me off during my preamble after, and it's interesting to note that you measure time, because after this episode yesterday, we went back and measured time. After 39 seconds of preamble, the ruling in Hansard, and in fact the ruling that you implied at the time, it says brevity in oral question period. I was cut off clearly in your mind because I wasn't being brief with my preamble. 39 seconds was the time that I had in that preamble. I noted on the same day that the leader of the opposition had 61 seconds for his first preamble. I noticed on Wednesday the 19th that the member for Athabasca-Lac-La-Biche had 61 seconds for his preamble. In both cases, they were not cut off and they were allowed to proceed. I was going to let this matter lie, and yet today I see that the member from Banff Cochrane was not cut off at 38 seconds, was not cut off, mentioned by the speaker himself, was not cut off a second later at 39 seconds. In fact, we weren't timing, but probably went on a good deal of time past that, maybe a minute and 10 seconds. I hate to bring it down to that kind of argument, but Mr. Speaker, in fact, that raises a question of an inconsistency. Now, if the speaker argues that there was another reason why I was cut off, which may have been, for example, he might argue that because I referred to a minister's absence. In fact, there's no clear indication in the subsequent rulings that day that I was mentioned in that light or that I was cut off for that reason. In fact, I'd gone well beyond that particular point in my preamble before the speaker cut me off. But in fact, that very day, the member for Jasper Place referred to the absence of the...
Thank you, honourable member. Thank you, honourable member. This is nothing but a veiled attempt to try to rationalize what occurred yesterday. This is not a point of... Take your place, honourable member. Take your place. As a matter of fact, the chair can, honourable member. You are questioning the decision of yesterday. Now, if you'd be good enough, honourable member, to have bothered to read, not only just with your cute little stopwatch, page 1852 of Hansard, you would realize that in actual fact you had about 5 or 6 sentences in your preamble, and they were delivered in a very excited tone. The chair intervened and said, thank you, now that you've let off that amount of steam, let's have a question. Instead of proceeding to ask a question, you then made a very snide remark to the chair about the chair being embarrassed about that member. Order, please. That is enough. You have no point of order. Standing Order 40, request, Redwater Andrew.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the Assembly today to give unanimous consent to the motion on congratulating the 100th anniversary of the first Ukrainian settlers in Canada and the province of Alberta.
Urgency.
The urgency of debate for this motion, Mr. Speaker.
There's a request under Standing Order 40. May the matter proceed. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Redwater Andrew, speaking to the motion, please.
Mr. Speaker, I want to first thank all members of the Assembly for the unanimous consent for this important event. And firstly, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you and the Assembly that that the first settlers from the Ukraine did in fact come into the Edna Star area, which is in the constituency I represent near the town of Lamont, and that two gentlemen that did venture out by the name of Mr. Pilepio and Mr. Eleniak, and they saw this great land, and many of their descendants still live and work and contribute greatly to the success of our region. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, among the first waves of Ukrainian settlers that did come were my own grandparents, which makes it very, very important at this time. Mr. Speaker, during this time, they've told of many stories of hardships and also stories of happiness and other things. And one thing that remains vivid in my mind of my grandparents speaking is they left the country of oppression and many others and different kinds of rules, and they came to this great country of Canada and the province of Alberta to have their freedoms, freedom of speech and freedom of religion and many other things. And this is the spirit they lived in, the family spirit, the community spirit. And I think that's what this province and this country was all built on. And I think they left it vivid in my mind that it's very important that we continue this spirit of free enterprise and not let some underground movements take over, as sometimes the indications might be. And this is where our challenge is from these great pioneers that did come in the early days of the 100 years ago. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, as chairman of the Alberta Multiculturalism Commission, it's my responsibility to include the awareness of the values of Alberta's cultural diversity. And Mr. Speaker, diversity is naturally people with different cultures and backgrounds. And as I said, this was the backbone of Alberta's development. And I think it continues to be our strength today. Mr. Speaker, this centennial reminds us of the tremendous contributions that settlers of Ukrainian origin have made to this province and this great country. And Mr. Speaker, it also reminds us of contributions all immigrants have made to our province and our nation. And Mr. Speaker, one final point that I want to bring up very strongly is that we are the host province for the official opening ceremonies this August. And fitting, we should honor this great national historic event through this special motion. And Mr. Speaker, I once again want to read this motion into the records, and it's: be resolved, the Legislative Assembly of Alberta recognize the period of August 1991 to October 1992 as the centennium of Ukrainian-Canadian pioneer settlement. Further, be acknowledge and affirm the contributions made by pioneers and their descendants who have come to this province from the Ukraine, and further to encourage all Albertans to participate in the many events associated with this historic event. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Assembly for... Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to support this motion, and I thank the member for bringing it forward. Mr. Speaker, our province and our nation have benefited from 100 years of the contributions of the Ukrainian settlers 100 years ago. They were industrious, hardworking people, often came to a very harsh reality in a harsh land, and experienced many difficulties in their early years, often in rural communities and starting rural communities, agricultural communities in this province. Their contribution over the century has has been in many avenues of our lives and our society and business and industry and the professions, in the First Estate, as academics, and in government. We have also been continuously enriched in great measure by many cultural elements that they have maintained through their years in Canada. They are noted, Mr. Speaker, and influence others in their communities for a very strong family life and for their commitment to community and certainly for their loyalty to our nation. Mr. Speaker, Alberta has been blessed by the continuing energy, the wisdom, and the caring of our citizens of Ukrainian descent. On behalf of the Liberal Caucus, I acknowledge this centenary, and I'm hopeful that all of us will have opportunities to participate and to share in the celebration.
The Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would, of course, want to speak in support of this most important motion, recognizing a most important occasion, which is the centennial of the arrival of Ukrainian settlers in Canada. The Ukrainian people were unique in that they were the first group to come straight to the center part of the nation, straight to Alberta, and began the settlement here. Most others worked their way in from the coast, but in 1891, two farmers came here. They saw land that they felt they could make a new life for themselves and their families just northeast of Edmonton. The following year brought back their families and began the process that we now have 100 years later, where the Ukrainian people have made a huge contribution to this province, not only in terms of their contribution to just breaking the land and opening up the country, but in literature, in the arts, in dance, in music, and in enterprise not necessarily associated directly with agriculture. Mr. Speaker, the contribution and some of that history is described in great detail in a living farm just on the outskirts of Edmonton at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village, one of the centerpieces of the Department of Culture and Multiculturalism in its mandate of recording and presenting and interpreting the history of this province. The village is involved in not only presenting interesting stories to the public in a museum setting, but it's also involved in a great deal of scholarly work on historic architecture, on language, on the effects of migration both in Ukraine and in Canada. They look at the history, the customs, the traditions, the language, the costumes of the Ukrainian people, and do a great deal of scholarly research. One of the interesting aspects of this centennial that relates to that scholarly work and the village is an exchange of conferences on the historic migration. And I had the privilege and indeed a wonderful experience it was to be in Ukraine last fall in the first half of that conference, which took place in cooperation with the Chernovitz University and the Institute of Ukrainian Studies there. I led a delegation of 8 scholars from both the University of Alberta, Grant MacEwan Community College, from the Manitoba Museum, and of course from our own department. And we spent several days in Chernovitz, and then the group stayed on and traveled through Lviv and some of the other places in Ukraine and exchanged work on architecture, on church history. And then that conference was repeated with a return visit by Ukrainian people who came here to Alberta, to Edmonton, and involved with the University of Alberta just a few weeks ago. But, Mr. Speaker, the most important aspect that remained with me was not the level of scholarly research, not the visit to Ukraine, not the 14 hours overnight on the train from Kiev to Chernovitz, but, Mr. Speaker, it was the spirit of the people. The spirit of the people that is still there, still evident, despite decades and generations of oppression under the iron fist of communism and under Kremlin central planning. Despite that fact, Mr. Speaker, despite that fact, the Ukrainian people's spirit and resolve to do what they believe is the right way to do things remains. Ukraine was fortunate in not being under the Kremlin's rule from 1917, but only since the post-war era. But nevertheless, when the Ukrainian people declared their independence, just about a year ago now, the first thing that happened was that pride that was just underneath the surface came forward. The highway signs that were in Russian were removed and were replaced with signs in the Ukrainian language. Those church buildings that were not allowed to be operated as houses of worship were transformed from party headquarter buildings into churches virtually overnight. And we saw that loving restoration work being conducted by the people, the Ukrainian people, that spirit of wanting to get on with life, that ability to make something of nothing, to do hard work, to see a problem and face it head on. That dedication to family, the willingness to sacrifice was there in Ukraine today as it has been for years, and it's that same spirit that made such a huge contribution to this province. And Mr. Speaker, that is why I believe that the resolve, the hard work, the dedication of the Ukrainian people is one of the prime ingredients that has made Alberta the leader in government, the leader in economy, the leader in agriculture, and viewed globally as the leading province that it is today.
Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too want to rise and speak to the motion, and indeed I think we want to support it on behalf of the New Democratic Party. I think it's very significant that this year, in celebration of the centennial of the Ukrainian pioneers in Alberta, that this motion should come forward, and I commend the member for bringing it before us today. Mr. Speaker, it's well known, and it's recognized the contribution that the Ukrainian pioneers made to the development and growth of this province. It was because they were people of the land, people of the soil. They're the people that cleared and plowed and sowed the vast prairies of this province, that produced the resources and the food that fed not only our province, certainly fed the Canada, and indeed we've been able to export the products of our work throughout the world. The motion makes reference to the descendants of those early pioneers, and of course we're very proud of the contribution that they have also made and continue to make in our province and our country. But probably, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, the most important thing that we have provided, in addition to all the other things, is our song and dance. The cultural aspect of the Ukrainian community, I think, is well recognized throughout certainly this province, but indeed the tours that our dancers and singers make is viewed and in demand throughout the world. And I think it's very significant, the kind of cultural component that they brought to our country and we can enjoy here as peoples. I would, of course, want to support the member in bringing this motion, and where he states, where he encourages all Albertans to participate in the events that are going to occur during this centennial year throughout the province. And I certainly join him in extending that invitation to the members of this assembly, of course, and to all Albertans. And I know that no event is going to go by without a good feed of borscht, bidehea, and holubchi. And so I know when I wet your whistle with your mouth with that kind of delicacy that you can enjoy, I know that you will want to travel to all the events and participate and join with, in my opinion, a very fine group of people that have made our province a very fine place to live in.
Member from Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Я дуже радо сказав дякую, пан Заруський, наш посол Redwater Andrew. My grammar may not be quite accurate, Mr. Speaker, but I'm just expressing my thanks to the member for Redwater Andrew for bringing forward this motion. And as the MLA for Vegreville, I do want to offer my wholehearted support for it. This is a very special year for descendants of Ukrainian pioneers in Alberta, indeed in Canada, because we're not just celebrating the 100th anniversary of a Ukrainian settlement in northeastern Alberta, it's the 100th anniversary of Ukrainian settlement in Canada, and it's a very significant event that will be acknowledged in a number of ways over the period outlined by the member for Redwater Andrew in his motion. The original settlers, Wassel Olenyuk and Ivan Pilipiu, came to the Star Edna area, as the member for Redwater Andrew said, and their excitement about the opportunities offered them in Canada encouraged them to go back to their homeland and urge their friends and neighbors and family members to follow them to Canada. They were encouraged in some measure by the government of Alberta, who was attempting to open up large portions of the province of Alberta to settlement. And the first large wave of immigration from Eastern Europe into Canada, and specifically Alberta, began, I believe, through the latter part of the 1890s and early part of the 1900s. There were two more waves of immigration, distinct waves of immigration into Alberta, and what we have as a result is a significant percentage of people in the province of Alberta of Ukrainian ancestry who have worked very hard to build futures for them and their families, and that effort has benefited all of us, Mr. Speaker. As the MLA for Vegreville, which has become known quite properly, I think, as sort of the center of Ukrainian culture in Canada, I'm very proud of my association with people in the Ukrainian community, and I know that when I first put my name before the people in the Vegreville area in 1986, some suggested that I would not receive support because I was not of Ukrainian background, and I'm proud to say that was not an issue for people in the Vegreville constituency. And I found them to be a very open and welcoming people, and I've always felt like I've been able to become part of the community. The onus was on me to express that desire, and once expressed, I was welcomed with open arms. We have a very rare opportunity in northeastern Alberta, Mr. Speaker, to actually have contact with the people who helped build our communities and build the institutions in our country. It's not an opportunity that exists in other parts, even in Alberta, because the southern regions of the province have been settled for an extra generation or two relative to northeastern Alberta, and other parts of Canada have been settled for many hundreds of years. So we have a unique opportunity to have direct contact with the women and men who paid the price, who made the sacrifices, and who helped build this great province of ours. And I consider it a real honor to be able to sit down and chat with these pioneers and settlers who helped create many of the things that we value so much. Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention a few things that honourable members might be interested in that will help commemorate this 100th anniversary. We've got the annual Pisanka Festival in the town of Vegreville, July 5th, 6th, and 7th. Everyone's welcome, and it's a fabulous extravaganza, showcase of Ukrainian culture. There's an event in Lamont on the 27th of July to kick off this one-year celebration. The weekend of August 9th, 10th, and 11th at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village, there is a celebration sponsored by members of the Olenyk family, many of whom continue to farm and work in northeastern Alberta. They're doing this to pay tribute not only to the 100th anniversary, but also to their Guido, great-grandfather, Wassel Olenyk, who helped it all begin. There's other things out there that would attract the interest of members, and maybe this is the time to make northeastern Alberta your destination during the holiday season. The Basilian Fathers in Mundare have built a fabulous museum in there that will pay tribute to the various aspects of Ukrainian culture. The Locusta Heritage Foundation has a museum in Vegreville, and indeed the member for Edmonton Gold Bar has sat on the board of directors of that. So I just want to encourage all honourable members in this assembly to participate as much as possible in the many special events that will occur in Alberta over the next 13 months, commemorating 100 years of determination and successful settlement by Ukrainian pioneers in the province of Alberta and in Canada. Thank you.
Calgary Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a few brief comments to make in support of this motion. We have heard from previous speakers the heartfelt comments that I share with respect to the outstanding contribution that the Ukrainian community has made to life in this province. Whatever aspect of our community endeavors, whether it be through politics at the provincial or the municipal level, whether it be through the richness of their cultures and their cuisine, they've had a profound effect on this province. I'm particularly pleased as a member of the Jewish community to note the excellent relations that prevail between our communities, and I might say that I note that in particular with respect to the excellent relations that I have had personally with individual members of the Ukrainian community and collectively with the Ukrainian community. And there are, of course, always a very few who would seek to open frictions of other times and other places, and I know that the Ukrainian community as a whole has no time for that. I'm appreciative of it, and I congratulate the community on this very auspicious occasion and look forward to taking part in and participating with them in the celebrations.
Call for the question. Redwater Andrews, summation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I want to thank the Assembly for the great support for this very historic and commemorative celebration which is coming up, and once again encourage everybody to participate. And it was mentioned the official opening will be starting here in Edmonton last weekend in August, and will carry on to the Star Edna area and on into the Ukrainian village, and then all kinds of activities will be going on throughout the province and indeed throughout the whole nation. And also I want to encourage everybody to make sure we can live in the free spirit and free enterprises these people have laid out for us. Once again, Mr. Speaker, ja vam всім дуже гарно дякую.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Let the record show unanimously.